We discussed about various software environments that are used in the distributed system and cloud computing. So, prior to discuss with this layered architecture, which is used in the service-oriented architecture, which we call popularly as service-oriented architecture or SOA, SOA, right? So, prior to discussing this architecture, you are familiar with one of the very popular architecture in computer network that we call as OSI ISO reference model, right? OSI ISO reference model. Or you have studied another architecture, okay, or another reference model that is called as a TCP/IP model, right? So if you see this OSI ISO reference model, the total number of layers in the OSI ISO reference model is 7, right? If you start from the bottom to top, the bottom layer is called as your physical layer. Second one is called as your data link layer. Third one is called as your network layer. Fourth one called as your transport layer. Fifth one is called as your session layer. Sixth one is your presentation layer. And the top one is called as your application layer. Okay. So whenever we discuss this particular layer architecture, you will see in the bottom level we are referring to the same OSI ISO reference model. Okay. And the entire architecture, whatever you are seeing in this particular slide, it is called as a layer architecture for web services and the grids. And if you go for service-oriented architecture focus on the web services. And these web services are represented in the form of an XML language. You know, that is extensive markup language. And we have HTML, but there is an improvement over HTML. And extensive markup language has more capability than your HTML language, right? So this bottom level, you can see the same OSI ISO reference model is used, and some of the protocols are used. For example, network layer consists of one protocol that is called your IP, right? Very famous IP, Internet Protocol. Transport layer is having two protocol. One is reliable, another is unreliable. That is your TCP and UDP. Okay, transmission control protocol or user data protocol. Session layer provide you some security mechanism, right? That is provided by your SSS, right? Or SSS is provided in the session layer. That protocol is presentation layer. We are using XDR, right? Similarly, in the top layer, which is your application layer, you are using the very famous HTTP or HTTPS, secured HTTP, okay, or the file transfer protocol or domain name service in the top, right? So this entire architecture or this reference is used in your ISO and OSI and ISO reference model is also called here as bit level internet, right? So on top of it, what we have another two layer, you can say. One layer is called as your base hosting environment. Okay, just like platform is providing you an environment in order to deploy the application. Similarly, we have here hosting environment. On top of it, we have various application related activity. Okay, or service related activity, which again decomposed into three layers, starting from bottom, that is service internet, service context, higher level services. What kind of things it can provide? These three sub layers, you can say, they are providing an interface. For example, if a user want to use a cloud, which is provided by a cloud service provider like Amazon, Microsoft, or Google, how you are going to assess the services of cloud service provider? By the help of an interface. So this interface may be an API, application programming interface, or it may be a portal, or in the simpler term you can say it is a web browser. Like we are using in the day-to-day life, Google Chrome we are using, right? And we are using Mozilla Firefox, or you are using Internet Explorer, or some other browser you have to use in order to get the services of cloud, right? That's why service interface plays and provides an interface to interact with the cloud resources. Similarly, service internet transport protocol is used in the service layer, this particular layer, service oriented layers, in order to provide various services in this particular layer, right? For example, you want to compute or you want storage from the cloud, you can use this service layer. Each and everything will be provided you in the form of services. Then while you are submitting your requirement, whenever you submit your requirement to a cloud service provider, that cloud service provider need to search for a appropriate resources in order to fulfill your requirement, right? All the users requirement is not same. Somebody may rely on fault tolerance aspect, somebody may rely on reliability, somebody may focus on the availability. Based upon your requirement, the cloud service provider will provide you the service by applying the discovery or information. Each and every resources that are available in the cloud service provider is recorded. Based upon your requirement, I will search the directory. Whichever service is well suitable for you, there is a cloud service provider. I am going to provide this to a particular customer. So, which services is used by which customer, whether the service is properly utilized or not, whether that services is fulfilling your quality of service, that is the responsibility of service management. And not only a user require for a single service, a user may require multiple services as well, which we call popularly called as a composite service. Composite service means one or more or two or more services, right? Combinedly, you require two things. Okay. So whenever we are talking about multiple services or composite services, you have to decide that which service need to be executed first, which service need to be executed second. In this way, you can divide the work into multiple parts. A work can be divided into multiple parts, or a service can be provided in a particular sequence by following a particular order. That we call as a workflow. So workflow determine a particular structure. For example, the workflows are generally represented in the form of a directed acyclic graph. In directed acyclic graph, you know, whenever the root node completed, then only the child node will come into picture, right? So here you can assume that each and every individual node can be treated as a service, right? So multiple service can be provided by a cloud service provider by following the dependency among the services, right? And always in the top layer you have application related services. Maybe this application is related to cloud application, or it related to a gas application, or it related to weather application, or it related to DNA computing. Any kind of application can be provided in the application layer, right? So this is the ROF architecture that is used in the service-oriented architecture in order to provide web services to the customer. We'll go in detail about service-oriented architecture, like what protocol is used in the service-oriented architecture, why SOA is a backbone of grid and cloud computing in the third module or third unit. We are going to decide in depth about service-oriented architecture. So here we discussed the traditional 7 OSI layer, or whatever layer we discussed in TCP/IP. More or less same layers are used in the OSI layer. The functionality is also same, right? More or less in TCP/IP, the functionality of 2 layers are merged in a single layer, right? But if you see in the bottommost layer of SOA architecture is having your traditional 7 OSI layer. Service-oriented architecture uses one language, just like I told you about XML, right? Extensive markup language. So here also one language is used that is called as your web service description language, and if you see the code is nothing but XML. Okay, and you know that XML XML is a unstructured data, is a semi-structured data. It is not a completely structured data. Like whenever you write something in the Microsoft Excel, you can claim that data is a structured data. Okay, but XML, whatever commands you are writing, right? Whatever things you are writing, so it may be in the form of pair tag. Okay, pair tag means XML followed by slash XML you are writing, and whatever components are there inside these two pair tag, that is not common, that is not used in all the programs. For example, here some specifications about table is there, or figure is there, or some text is there that you are writing. For another web service that is not required, so you are not writing, right? So here, that's why it is called as all the things are not available. We cannot say it is a completely structured data. We call it a unstructured data. So we are using XML format for describing various network services, right? And communication among the services, like I told you in workflow, multiple services are there, right? So the communication among the services is done using the RPC, that is a remote procedure call, right? And while executing a particular services, it may happen that one service may be failed. In order to deal with such a case, what we are doing, this service-oriented architecture is also providing some fault tolerance aspects using your web service reliable messaging framework. So this WSRM framework is enable the services to communicate each other through a messaging protocol. Also same as you are mimicking the OSI layer capabilities. OSI layer also, each layer is giving some information to the next layer. Okay, the next layer carry forward that by adding some more information, so that this will be added in the sender end and it will be removed in the receiver end in order to send an appropriate information to the receiver. So here, in order to deal with the security aspects, we are using IPsec or secure circuit layer. SSL also used in the service-oriented architecture. If you go for the distributed system, this OI is also coming under the distributed system. Earlier, the very famous architecture that is used in the Java CORBA architecture, that is called Common Object Request Broker architecture, and Java is used in the distributed system. But by emerging this service-oriented architecture, now we are using SOAP. SOAP stands for Simple Object Access Protocol. Okay, SOAP. This is not a service-oriented architecture protocol. This is called as a Simple Object Access Protocol, or the REST API, RESTful API. That is called representational state transfer, is used in the case of service-oriented architecture, which provides enormous advantages in comparison to your CORBA architecture or Java, the base programming language, that is Java. So REST is keeping all the information by dividing the entire script into two parts. One is there is a header part, another is there is the body part. Like each and every scripting language also, you know, there is a header part and there is a body part. Like email also, we have a header part and a body part. Header part contain the abstract information, or you can say minimal information we are keeping in the header, and body part we are keeping all the needed information, or you can say detailed information is stored in the body part. Okay, and these are represented in the form of an XML schema or XML format. Everything will be represented, right? So evolution of SOA enable to build the grid or the cloud, right? You know that the grid is used for the scientific and business application. It also provided more or less the same features of the cloud, or you can say the for cloud grid is called as the backbone. But grid is originally proposed, okay, to provide aggregation of the resources, sharing of the resources, monitoring of the resources, and combining the resources to so that the entire resources is a single unit. That's why many scientific and engineering applications are hosted in grid. But cloud is taking the same advantages of your grid and provide everything as a business aspect. Okay, each and everything will be provided to you based upon your pay-as-you-go model. Based upon your usage, you are going to pay for that particular service. SOA also enables to you grids of cloud or clouds of grids or clouds of clouds, which we call as inter-cloud, or we later will discuss about one important topic that is called as multi-cloud, in which one cloud is collaborating with another cloud to provide services in a federated manner, or systems of systems. These are possible because of the SOA, service-oriented architecture. SOA is also focusing on various standards, various common APIs that should be used by all the cloud service providers. If all the cloud service provider uses the same standards or same API, then migrating from one cloud service provider to another cloud service provider is a easier task. Okay, so there is a data collection services. I will tell you in the form of a diagram so the idea is more clear. So with respect to various applications, we have deployed various sensor services, which we call it SS. Sensor services does not mean that the sensors are there to collect the data. Collection of data can be done by the help of the sensors. Suppose you are collecting the data from some source, that can be also treated as a sensor services. Or there is a Bluetooth connection is there, or you have connected a Zigbee devices, or Wi-Fi, SS point, personal computer, GPA, wireless phone. Whatever devices you have deployed to collect the data is treated as a sensor services. So once you collect the sensor service data, the data may not be in appropriate form for processing. So what we will do, we have to apply some kind of technique in order to remove the unwanted data. That's why we are using filter services. Filter services is used to deal with the missing data or dealing with the unwanted, unnecessary data, which is not required for processing. So if you see this complete picture, the idea will be more clear. You see there are various applications are there. One may related to the agriculture application, another may related to the satellite application, one may related to the telecommunication applications. All the applications, whatever discussed here, or it may be a airline system application, okay, or it may be a earthquake analysis application, rock applications. All the applications, the data is collected by your SS, which we call it a sensor services. So once these sensor services collect the data, they are giving the data to your filter service. The reason of giving the filter service to this particular data is that it will remove the unnecessary or unwanted data. Once the unwanted things or the missed data is filled, then what you can do? You can do a proper analysis. Right? Somebody may require computational cloud, some may require storage cloud. Somebody want to compute something into the cloud, somebody want to keep some data in the storage cloud. Just like we are storing the data in the Google Drive. Or I want to run a particular application in the cloud. That is called as a compute cloud. So once these services are filtered, okay, you know that each and every devices are connected. I told you that through a user interface. Or user interface is nothing but the portals or portlets by which you can get the information. Right? So overall, if you see, initially you have raw data, then you have data, you are processing such data to get the information. From the information, you can get the knowledge. From knowledge, you can get wisdom, and thereby you can take an appropriate decision on a particular application. Once you analyze the data, you can suggest whether there is a rain or not. Once you are analyzing the data, you can suggest some kind of advice to a farmer. Okay. Once you analyze the data, you can suggest that whether the air communication between two different clouds is possible in the airline system or not. So such type of things can be done by the help of the service-oriented architecture, which you can call as a grids of cloud or grids. or end grids or clouds of grids. These are used to provide various services with respect to the applications. So the trend towards a distributed operating system, like you know that if there is a client server system is there or a server is connected with 30 clients, so what happened? Instead of going for individual operating system, what we are doing, we are installing the operating system in the server. And server is going to provide one instance to each and every client. For example, I have taken 10 copy of the operating system and I have 30 computer system. So at a time, 10 instances you can create in the server and these instances can be run in a particular client, right? So for example, 11 machine wants to on, okay, 11 machine want to execute some application, then out of this 10, one need to be switched off in order to start the 11th computer system. Okay, because what you are doing, you are dealing with the instances of the server. You cannot exit the instances of the server. That's why whenever we are purchasing a particular license, we are asking how many users are going to use this particular software at the same time. So if there is a single instance, then only one person can use. If 30, then it is limited to 30 only. If 31 will come into picture, then one need to be switched off. Similarly, whenever you want to go for cloud computing system, there you can go for distributed operating system. DOS, we call it a distributed operating system. So this distributed operating system, why the computers using this particular computer system, they can share the various resources and they can communicate with each other. Right? As you know that the task is very high, the application size is very high. So it is not possible for an application to run in a particular computer system because single computer's resources is not sufficient to run a particular application. That's why you are relying on the distributed system. Right? So the sharing and fast communication is easier in the distributed operating system. Apart from that, distributed computing operating system will also provide good performance, efficiency, and flexibility. Right? Efficiency can be improved. Okay, there is a lot of flexibility in joining the system or leaving the system. Okay, so there are three approaches with respect to your distributed operating system. First one is you have to build a network operating system. You have to connect the computer system and provide network operating system. Then you have to develop the middleware. So middleware is placed in between two entities. This is what I will refer in all the lectures, most of the lectures. Middleware is used in between two different layers or two different entities. What is the reason of using middleware? Middleware is providing the very first feature that is called as abstraction. Okay. The entire system that, like I told you about last class about single system image. Single system image is a property of your middleware. So middleware provides abstraction, provided appropriate security enforcement policies so that it can provide infrastructure as well. The very popular middleware is called as your Mojix/OS, or one of the popular which is used in a distributed computing, especially that is called as distributed computing environment, or popularly known as DCE. So these are the two middleware used in the distributed system. Third step is you have to develop a truly distributed operating system. Right? What kind of distributed operating system you can install? One is example in your Mojix 2, okay, which is not providing the full features of your single system image, but the partial features of single system image is provided by this particular distributed operating system. So these are the operating system required in order to set up a service-oriented architecture, or indirectly you want to set up a infrastructure in order to build a particular cloud. Now, if you see the comparison of there are three distributed operating systems. Three operating systems was developed by various university researchers. One is called as AMOEBA, which was developed by Bridge University. Okay, their researcher developed this particular operating system. Similarly, another operating system that we discussed, that is called Distributed Computing Environment, is OSF1 by Open Software Foundation. Open Software Foundation released a distributed OS that is called DC. Next one is Mojix for Linux cluster at Hebrew University. So these researchers have developed this operating system to provide the first communication or sharing the resources of one computer with another computer. So their description is written in this particular slide. We'll see only very small part. For example, if you see this particular operating system, it is written in C. Okay, tested in the European community. The version is 5.2, released in the year of 1995. There may be so many updated versions by now, right? Similarly, if you see DCE is built as a user extension on top of the Unix. Like I told you, there is a guest operating system, there is a host operating system. So you can go in the top of the Unix or VMS or Windows or OS/2. On top of the Windows also, you can install this distributed operating system. So Windows may be treated as your host operating system, and you consider as your DC or OSF1 is can be considered on top of the host operating system. Similarly, Mojix, if you see, it is developed in the year of 1977. Later, the improved version is called as your Mojix 2, uses the Linux and GPU cluster. Right? Like that, there is a different, if you see the protocol aspects or the middleware aspect or the virtualization provided by this distributed operating system, they are different from each other. And with respect to various applications, also the performance efficiency of the distributed operating systems are also different. So the very popular, I told you, PBM MPI. If you see here, the Mojix uses the PBM MPI in collective communication. Somewhere the message passing system is used to communicate between two different entities. Few distributed operating systems are also using this RPC, remote precision code, right? So based upon that, you can differentiate one distributed operating system with another distributed operating system. This is not the complete list. This we are comparing only 3 distributed operating systems. But if you see, there are a lot of distributed operating systems out here, and these operating systems are also available in a extended in a high manner, and they are available in a new version, right? Next, if you see here, earlier what happened? Here you can see there are 4 different layers. One is called as your user data, another is called as your application, third one is your operating system. Bottommost layer is always the hardware layer. Irrespective of any architecture used in the grid, cloud, cluster, or service-oriented architecture, or any architecture, like you know that in OSI ISO model, the bottommost layer is called the physical layer. If you see the components of the physical layer, it is more or less related to your hardware. If not complete 100% hardware, but this tends to 100% hardware. So what we are doing earlier, all the works of these 4 layers is done in a single layer. Now what happened? Now this one is decomposed into various layers. If you decompose into various layers, then what will happen? The responsibility given into each and every layer is different. Earlier, all the responsibility is given to a single layer, but now we are providing the responsibility to each and every individual layer. What can be resulted? You will get a transparent computing environment. So this transparent computing environment separates your data, application, operating system, and hardware. Okay, which is also an innovation done in the case of cloud computing, or you can say it is a base model that you are using in the cloud computing. Okay, hardware is not related to server only, or hardware is not related to personal computer or personal computer or workstation. It may be anything. Like here you can see laptop can be considered a hardware, or some devices, smartphone can also consider as a hardware. And you know how you are controlling these hardwares? How hardware of a laptop or desktop is controlled? By installing a system software that is called as your operating system. Again, operating system has various variants. Linux operating system is there, Unix operating system is there, right? Mac OS operating system is there. So many operating systems are there. So on top of this hardware, what you are doing? You are installing an operating system which enabled to you to interact with the user application, right? That's why it is saying in the hardware layer, standard hardware interface for users to choose different operating system. User can choose the different operating system with respect to their application. My requirement is Linux, I will use Linux. Somebody's requirement is Unix, they will use Unix application. Okay. Then on top of this application, system software, we are installing the application software. The application software may be a Google Chrome, or maybe a Word application, or it may be a Mozilla Firefox, or some other applications as well. Antivirus application also may be there. So standard programming interface for various environments. Okay. So by using this interface or portlet or a portal, the user can send the data or store the data in the hardware, or user can request to store the data in a particular layer. So this is nothing but the data storage, that is data owned by a user independent of the application. Suppose I want to store some data into Google Drive. Okay. So I will open a particular web browser, right? That web browser is running, supporting by a particular operating system, and in the Google Drive, okay, the whatever store is given to you, that is occupied in a particular data center, and you are storing your data in the data center. So in this way, the responsibility given to each and every layer is different, which is nothing but an ideal model for cloud computing. Similarly, if you see, there are some parallel distributed programming models are there, which I repeat. MPI, the very famous MapReduce model, Hadoop, right? These are platforms are there where you can execute multiple works at the same time. That's why increasing the number of processors will not give you a solution. You have to ensure that you have a programming model. By using that programming model, you will make your processor as busy as possible. So this is possible by the help of these models. And if you go for MPI, MPI is more or less related to the C code only. Some additional commands are used, MPI receive, MPI communication, some extra commands are used. But if you see, it is nothing but the library of the subprogram that can be called from CL4, more or less related to CL4. Similarly, MapReduce, you know, it is having two words. One is map, another is reduce. I'll tell you an example to clear the idea, right? In which you can divide the work among multiple nodes. A small work can be done in each and every individual node. They can also compute the work or store their work. And finally, they will hand over the work to a master node. The master node will again combine all the results to provide the complete output. That is possible because of your MapReduce. Similarly, SDFS, Hadoop Distributed File System, is also supporting your parallel and distributed programming model, right? Because this is providing all the scalable structure, and the cost is also very less. That's why these programming models are very famous in comparison to other models. See this example, what we are doing? We are giving input to a map task. We have multiple map tasks, right? So your entire input is now divided into three parts, as seen in this particular diagram. Okay, various map functions are there. You are dividing the data and giving the data to individual map function. then this map function is connected to your reduce task. Map task is connected to your reduce task. Once you divide task into map task, each and every individual unit will do their work. Then in order to combine the work, what we are using the reduce map. So you can see all the map tasks are now connected to the reduce task. So we are collecting the results, and finally the output will be delivered to you. For an example, if you want to take an example, let us take this example. I have a text file, okay, like deer, beer, river, car, river, deer, car, beer, right? So there is a text file. Just I want to know the occurrence of each and every individual word. So what I have to do? I will divide this text file into multiple parts, or you can say one row I will take as one sub file, or I'll divide with respect to one line. What I'll do? First one I am taking here. The first line, that is deer, beer, and river here. Next one is car, river here, and deer, car, beer here. Okay. So this is nothing but pairing a key value with a pairing a key with a value. That is called as K stands for key, V stands for value. Key value pair we are establishing. Then by using a map task, what I can say, this word is repeated one time, this word is repeated one time, river is repeated one time. Similarly, the second map function, what it will do? It will say that car is repeated one time, second word is repeated car also again one time, river is repeated one time. Okay. Third case, here is deer is one time, car is one time, and beer is one time. Right? So these are the mapping functions. One mapping is done, what you have to do? You have to reduce the, you have to again collect the results. So you will see that in which map function you have a, for example, x word is there. X word is belongs to which mapping function? For example, here beer is here, so it is one, and here is also one beer is there, so it is connected to one. So it is saying one time it is repeated in one map function, another time it is repeated in another map function. Similarly, car case, it is saying it is repeated one time here, one time again in the same map function. In the last module also one time. Similarly, deer case, what happened? Here it is one time, here it is one time. River case, it is one time. Then you are applying the reduce task. Reduce task will again combine your result. So it will say it is repeated twice, it is repeated thrice, it is repeated twice, it is repeated twice. Finally, the result will be combined and it will be given to the user. So this is the work of we are doing, that is very famously known as map reduce word count process. Okay. If the same work it will be done by a sequential programming or a sequential programming model, then it will take more time. But as you are using parallel programming model, this work can be done in a faster way in comparison to the sequential programming. Similarly, in the grid, like I told you about service-oriented architecture, if you go for grid, there is an open grid service architecture, which we famously call as OGSA. This OGSA architecture also provides various standards and toolkits for many applications, maybe scientific applications or engineering applications. Like one of the very popular toolkit is used in the grid, that is called a Globos toolkit. Okay, this Globos toolkit is also having various version 2, version 3, which we call a GT2, GT3 is used in the grid computing. Okay. Similarly, OGSA provides various standards. The reason of providing the standard to provide an unified services, nothing else. If you provide the standard, migration is easier. Services, whatever is providing is easier. Just like if all the university will provide the same type of certificate, then you can easily locate right corner is having a barcode, that is nothing but your roll number. Right? Or left corner is having your logo of your institute. But all are printing in different mark sheets, right? Different standards they are following. different formats are there following. What will happen? You require more time in comparison to the previous case. You require more time in order to locate a particular thing in the marksheet. The same thing happens here, but here we call it as services. It is a non-technical word, it is a technical word, right? So if you see here, OGSS standards, the main key feature is supports a heterogeneous distributed environment, bridging the certification authorities. Many certification authorities is there. Each and every certification authority may have various policies, so you can integrate it. Multiple trusted intermediaries can be combined. Okay, and dynamic policies, multiple security intelligence. So these barriers in providing the services can be removed if you go for a particular standard, right? And if you see, Globus Toolkit is also providing various security features like PKI, public key infrastructure, Kerberos, socket secure layer, proxy, delegation, GSS API. These are various things security with respect to security concept. So that is used in the Globus Toolkit. Okay, so that any intruder or you can say any unauthorized person cannot waste the resources or cannot input to you while you are getting the resources from a particular vendor. Okay, so these are the used in grid services. The performance, how you are going to evaluate the performance of the system, or we are going to the aspects of the system, or the very much important that is called energy efficiency. What are the energy efficient algorithms are there, right? Or how you can minimize the energy by providing. Just I will discuss this introduction part. So you know that in order to calculate the performance of a system, it usually depends upon the CPU speed. How much instruction you want to execute in a particular CPU. Okay, how much instruction you can do in a per second basis, that purely depends on how much instruction. Generally, CPU we are representing in the form of MIPS. So, whenever the user submit a work to a particular cloud, so it is we are the virtual machine in the cloud, right? We are creating the virtual machine. Virtual machine provide the service, right? So, user task is of instruction, or user task is represented in the form of volume of data. Like microprocessor also, if you go for a microprocessor script or microprocessor code, you will see a set of instructions are there. One instruction may be moving from one register to another register. And these instructions are nothing but 1 byte instructions or 2 byte instructions or 3 byte instructions. Okay. So if you have written a microprocessor code, if you want to execute in a processor, so it purely depends upon the what is the processor, how much instruction the processor can execute at a particular time. That's why CPU speed is represented in the form of MIPS. Generally, next is your network bandwidth. Network bandwidth is represented in the form of your Mbps. If high Mbps is there, data transfer is much faster. If there is low Mbps is there, then there may be a conversion. Right? Similarly, system throughput we are analyzing in the form of MIPS or TPROF, that is per second, or transactions per second. Okay, these are the measures to evaluate the performance of a particular system. And overall, our objective is delay should be as minimum as possible, bandwidth should be as maximum as possible. If delay is it is both each other. Delay is as minimum as possible, means it is possible because of there is a high bandwidth. If bandwidth is high, then latency will be low. If high latency will be there, then the communication, the messaging system between two different computers will take more time. Right? Similarly, the quality of services provided for various web services, you have to decide whether the quality of services is high or quality of services is low. If some quality of service requirement is specified by a customer, as a provider, you need to fulfill the quality of service to the customer. Otherwise, there is a violation of quality of services, whatever recorded in a service level agreement. Next one is performance also indicates that the resources should be available for 24/7. There should not be any downtime. Okay, if there is a downtime, then it will be dissatisfaction of the customer. So you have to see that availability should be as maximum as possible. And one system should not be dependent on other system. There should not be any dependency between two systems. If they are dependable system, then what happened? One execution will depend on other system, which will delay your execution. Similarly, performance is also associated with the security aspect. If somebody is flooding the message packets, okay, if somebody is flooding some unnecessary message, which will create the network congestion, so that it will delay the message communication between any two units. So performance focus that how you can achieve good performance in a system by providing low latency and high value. Similarly, if you see, scalability is a concept. Scalability says that you can increase based upon the user requirement. The dimension of scalability is varies, right? So initially you can take small number of systems, like if you go for Amazon EC2, there are various instances are there, like T2 micro instances there, T2 large instances there, T2 extra large instances there. These instances are different from each other based upon the computational capacity. Like one is providing 2 GB, another is providing 4 GB, another is providing 6 GB, right? And the innovation is going on in such a manner that today 2 GB may be a big one, maybe after 10 years 2 GB is a very small one. Like the picture, whatever we are taking through various devices like smartphone, the picture, each and every picture size is 3 MB or 5 MB. So maybe the picture quality will be increased in the next 1 decade. So each and every picture size is continuing. At that time, storage will be one of the important aspects. That's why you have to migrate, you have to make everything as a backward compatible. So whatever things are there and whatever things are there in today, right? It should be while you are moving from one part to another part, it should support your backward compatibility. The same physical hardware, whatever you are using or software, that can be possible to execute in today's world. Then only you can say the system is done in a backward compatibility mode. You can see here that one machine that is called as your IBM S2. It was a old machine, that is 1997 machine. If you see the number of processors, you can scale up to 512 processors. Suppose you are executing an application, in that application you require 2 processors. But after some time the application generates more data, so you require more processors. So you can expand up to 512 number of processors. This is one of the example of your scalability. Similarly, in 2008, IBM Blue Gene/L, if you see the number of processors, you can expand up to 6,500. Sorry, 65,000 number of processors. Like that, you can see in the supercomputer, the number of cores are also in terms of lakhs, right? So the number of parallelism you can do in a supercomputer is very high. Similarly, you have to see the software scalability. Okay, one software may be compatible with a particular hardware. When the hardware will be upgraded to a new one, then the software may not be compatible, right? Like we are upgrading the operating system. Earlier we are having Windows XP system. Now we are using Windows 7 or Windows 10 system, right? So operating system or compiler, we are upgrading, right? Similarly, we are adding various libraries. So various programming models are also providing various libraries. So no need to go for the base level coding. You can use various functions or library in order to simplify the codes. Next is porting your new application software. Whatever applications, like various new versions are coming with respect to a particular software. So these things can be ported, can be moved to your new hardware if it is supporting the backward compatibility, right? So the same software you can run in the top of a particular hardware. So these are various things like installing more user-friendly programming environment. These things are required in order to judge the performance of the system, right? Whether the system is performing well or not, or whether the system is idle, or the system is busy, or the system is in a sleep mode, that we are analyzing with respect to the various performance matrices.